You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and today we have a special guest. She's just outside of Atlanta, and her name is Eryn Eddy. She's also been featured on CNN, MSNBC. She's been on the Oprah Magazine. That's crazy. She's been in Atlanta Magazine. Anybody says Oprah, that's a big deal, by the way. But she has been everywhere. She's doing big things. Right now, she's being saved because of COVID. But we're going to learn all about her. I just want to welcome Miss Eryn Eddy to the show and say, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. Goodness, you're so kind. I love it. Thank you for having me.
I could spend the next 20 minutes on your bio, but that wouldn't be fair to the audience. So since we have 26 minutes in the show, I want to talk about this amazing project, So Worth Loving, because you are the founder of the lifestyle clothing brand, So Worth Loving. But you also have a book and everything. You have a website that people can learn more about. But let's dive into, this is a new year. Let's talk about a new perspective for the audience on why So Worth Loving is a great idea for them.
Yeah. You know, I think that 2020 definitely showed us just, it definitely showed us what we think about ourselves, because we've had a lot of time to do that. Whether, if you're listening, your job changed, your relationship status could have changed, maybe even family dynamics all of that stuff comes out. And you start to really recognize how you view yourself, what your self-talk is. And I think coming into 2021, taking what we've learned, and whether our self-talk is negative or if our self-talk is, belittling, or it's fear-driven, or we shame ourselves. And going into 2021, my hope for me is to walk in with a new perspective, and that is to apply some of the junk that I saw last year, and to recover and rebuild and move forward and do some really cool things this year. So I think, So Worth Loving is the message, the whole idea behind So Worth Loving is to treat yourself with respect and honor and grace and compassion. So we can do that for other people. And if your self-talk hasn't been grace-giving, if it hasn't been compassionate, if it hasn't been kind, let 2021 be this year that we do that,
And you, before COVID happened, you were a speaker at conferences, you going to corporate headquarters. So this wasn't something new to you. This is a lifestyle that, you're what they would say a master of doing. So when it comes to the audience today, what is your story? Like, how did this start and how were you able to launch this movement?
I don't know if I call myself a master. I'll call myself a learner.
I'll be the first one to say it. Yeah.
I like it when you say it. But I'll call myself a learner. No, I've owned So Worth Loving for 10 years. And it's crazy. In March, it will be 10 years. And, what I've learned in just seeing it over time is that we all feel alone in our struggles. We all feel alone in our circumstances. Even if our circumstance somebody else has experienced, there is a moment where we feel completely isolated and we feel like we are that circumstance, or we are that breakup that happened, or we are that divorce. For me, I went through a divorce 4 years ago, and I felt like I was that. There was so much shame and failure and heartache attached to it. But prior to that, I wrestled with believing I was worthy of love. I wrestled with believing that I have purpose. And I think we all experience that. And so Worth Loving, the people that make up So Worth Loving are people that are willing to just be honest about how they feel and what they think about themselves, and how they view and how they think about other people, and how, and they just want to be honest about it, because at the end of the day, like when we're honest about what we feel, when we're honest about what we think, we're closer to being able to heal from that thing. And So Worth Loving, you know, it started off as I was a musician. I was an art director by day and a musician by night. And I wanted to create some sort of product that the people that supported my music, my fans, as you would say, I wanted to create something for them that they could identify with. I wanted to remind them that they were worthy of love, that they have purpose, and they breathed so much belief in me and my music that I wanted to breathe belief in them that they were loved. And so I put my home address on my Tumblr blog 10 years ago. And shout out to Tumblr back in the day, if anybody knows what Tumblr is. I put it on my blog and I said, mail me your personal t-shirt and I will spray paint that you are so worth loving, and I'll mail it back to you for free because I had no money to buy product. And so that's kind of how So Worth Loving got started grassroots wise. And then it just manifested into people sharing their stories of wanting to be honest about why they struggle with believing they're worthy of love.
And once again, we're talking to Eryn Eddy right here on I Am Refocused Radio. And when you decided to write the book to just push this down the road, what is it that you hoping that readers, when they open the book and they read it, what is that one thing you hope they take away?
That's a good question. I hope that the reader feels freedom to ask questions and to not have answers. I think what brought me further away from believing I was worthy of love, and that I was valuable and that I had purpose, was my shame for asking questions that actually helped me to discover it. So questions about God, questions about my past relationships, questions about my choices that I made out of a lack of, out of insecurity, the vices that I chose. I had so much shame. I don't want to generalize, but I carried shame in what I was going through. And I just wanted a safe place to ask questions where somebody wasn't going to say, you are that question you're asking. And so I hope that somebody that reads my book feels safe to ask questions about their self-worth and their identity.
And speaking of self-worth, in the book is divided in sections. It's actually 3 sections: look in, look up, and look out. For someone listening right now, how does that look like for them, especially if they are on that journey trying to discover their own worth?
I wrote the book in 3 sections, and then I have small chapters. I mean, they're like bite-sized chapters and I named them certain titles, and then I gave the definitions of each title. My goal for somebody reading was to be able to acknowledge a word that really resonates with them and read that section. You can read the book front to back, or you can pick up a bite-size. But with writing just look in, look up, look out. The reason I did it in that format, look in, look up, look out, was because I wanted to take somebody on my personal journey. I thought maybe if I share my personal journey, this might help somebody be able to feel like they have the freedom to discover and go on their own personal journey. So look in for me was looking into all of the junk that I believed about myself since I was 7, like childhood wounds and all of that stuff. Like stuff that you do in therapy sessions, stuff that's the not so pretty stuff, the messy stuff, like the messy stuff that we choose, look up was my conversations with God, or lack of, and honestly not. I went through a time where I defied God. I didn't believe in God. I didn't, my idea of who God was what society said God was. My idea of God was how people represented God. And so I didn't want anything to do with him. And so look up as that. And then the look out section is, okay, how do you protect some of the stuff that you've processed and that you're healing from? How do you protect yourself? And then who is safe? Like, who are people that you can bring in? Because when you go through rock bottom times, you're impressionable and you're tender. And as much as I pretended that I was tough, I was tender. I was so tender. And so look out is all about, how do you protect the stuff that you worked on? How do you protect yourself from people speaking in? How do you develop healthy boundaries with people? So my goal with the look in, look up, look out is to take people on a journey that help me to identify my lack of self-worth, and then my conversations with God, and then how to protect it, but then also how to be that friend for somebody that is going through what I went through.
And when that brings change in someone's life, it's like the sun finally coming out the clouds, and it's like, yeah, that looks nice. When that happens in someone's life, how does that truly change? Because it's one thing to know your worth, it's another thing to actually believe that you actually are worth that. So how does that actually change an individual's life?
I think it changes the trajectory of the path that you're going down. Because I think that we're a product of our choices. And over time, if we aren't recognizing, if we're not recognizing what we're feeding ourselves, like the nutrients, like I think about like a tree or, a plant, like the more you water it, the more it grows. So what are you watering? And there have been times in my life for sure. And I'm curious for you, like, have there been times in your life where you've like, I am watering something that should not grow. Like this thing should not grow, and I just keep watering this weed. Have you ever experienced that before? Because I sure have.
A wise person told me, wherever the mind goes, the body follows. And I would say, yes, I have definitely experienced that. And one of my favorite quotes of all time when I was in high school, not that long ago, but when I was in high school, it was by Blaise Pascal. It said, in faith, there's enough light for those who want to believe, but also enough shadows to blind those who don't.
Oh my gosh, that's good.
That's been my quote that I always carried. And I graduated from high school a long time ago. I was just joking. But, not that long ago. I graduated from University of Toledo in 2010. So, speed up 2021. I'm kind of old, but not kind of, I'm like small old, if that makes any sense. Like I'm kind of old. So in the next 30 years, I will be officially old. But to answer your question, yes, I think most of us have gone through dark times where we had to make a choice. Cause like we said earlier, we are a product of our choices. And I like to say, if you're still breathing, that means that's God's way of saying, you can make a better choice. But just remember, I didn't have to let you wake up. So you might want to start making good choices now. And my dark humor for this show, I know this is a serious talk that we're doing right now, but my dark humor is, I know God has a sense of humor because he knows we're hard-headed and he knows that we're going to make mistakes. The thing is, if you make an accident, just clean it up. It's just that simple, because I think we overcomplicate things and we try to get into deep waters a lot. And I feel like he's a little bit more simplistic when he approaches us, and he's a one-on-one type person. He's not begging you to walk down the church aisle and make a scene. You can try that, but no one's doing that right now. They're home safe. But, it's just one of those situations where you just have to turn the page and move forward.
Gosh, that's so good. Will you share that quote again? Will you say that again?
Blaise Pascal, one of the most famous quotes in my book of something I took out the page is, in faith, there's enough light for those who want to believe, but there's also enough shadows to blind those who don't.
Ooh, that's it. That's the interview right there. That's so good.
And the way I'm going to tie this back to you is so worth living. That's what it's about. I mean, Henry Ford said, either you think you can or you can't. You're right. It's really like you said, I'm gonna give all the credit to you because you're the guest of the show. When you said we're the product of our own choices, that's so true. Honor your gift, because like your gift, the Bible says it makes room for you, but honoring your gift, it allows you to help others to recognize their own gift. Because how can you help someone grow if you're not growing?
That's right.
It's like someone with a broken arm trying to throw the ball. Well, I can't get a touchdown. Your arm's broke. You gotta get better. We have to get ourselves better, put ourselves in position for other people to get better. Yeah,
it's so true. It's so true. One of my mentors, she shares with me, she says, if you're not dead, you're not done. And I love that. And you can choose. You can choose.
I think everybody's crying right now in San Antonio, so you might let them get a tissue real quick.
Get a tissue real quick.
I promise you, I promise I'm not in the studio crying, and I promise it's not a comedy show. Sometimes with guests, you just have a good time, and this is one of those times. So
it really is.
I'm
so grateful for it.
To get back to this movement that you're doing, because you got to remember, you have a book that is also highlighting your whole movement that you're doing, So Worth Loving, which is very perfect timing right now, especially with all the people who are going through what they're going through right now in this time of life. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about our mindset, because you did talk about choices. We are a product of our choices. How does an individual, number one, change their mindset, and also how do they use discipline to keep that momentum?
Yeah, gosh, and that's hard. What helped me and continues to help me, because I don't think you ever fully arrive at believing that you're worthy of love. I think it's just a battle. I think it's a constant battle, and you find out through circumstances and living life more and more of what you think of yourself and more of what you think of God in the journey. And so, for me, what I kind of learned, I had to be honest. I had to be really honest about my talk. Like, what was I saying to myself? And if I wrote it down on a piece of paper, like if I was really just so painfully truthful and I wrote it down, I was fearful that if I wrote it down, then that meant that I was then saying it was true. I think sometimes we get scared to admit what we think about ourselves, because if we admit what we think, we're scared that we are saying that it's true, which isn't true. Light always casts out darkness. It does. And I had to be honest with what my dark thoughts were. I had to shine a big, bright light on it. And God does not want to, he doesn't want us to do that alone. And he really is. I love what you said. He is simple in that way. Like, I complicate it with my thoughts being so loud, and I was almost like I was addicted to negative thinking. It's like I was addicted to, hurting myself with my thoughts more than I was excited about positive things. It's like, it was almost like I was punishing myself with my thoughts. And when I shined a big light on it, journaled it, brought it to God, I know Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you." But in the King James Version, it says, "For I know the thoughts I think towards you." And I love that translation, because I want to know what God's thoughts are of me. Because right now, my group of friends say this, social media says this, I say this, my ex-husband says this, this friend group says that. I need to understand what you think about me, God. And that, just me bringing that to him and just saying, God, teach me, guide me. And you are the inventor of words. You are the inventor of wanting to you're the inventor of teaching. You're the inventor of learning. Like, teach me, help me to learn. I want to know what the thoughts that you think are towards me. And then when I started journaling that and started writing down thoughts that were positive versus the negative thinking, I'm not talking about like just positive affirmations, but I'm talking about like truth about like our humanity, right? Like what he really intends, the purpose that he really has for us. When I started journaling those thoughts down, then I started to discipline my mind and acknowledging this thought is negative, this thought is positive, this thought is a slow killer to my self-esteem, this thought builds me up. And even if it wasn't a positive thought, because I think that even constructive criticism that doesn't feel positive is positive and can be used for positive. So I would hold the thoughts that I felt like the Lord brought into my mind, that I felt like he was bringing to my attention. And I would be like, God, thank you for acknowledging that. Is this something that I should keep, or is this something that I should release? And that's some of the ways that I learned on just disciplining my thoughts and learning more about my self-worth.
And once again, we're talking to Eryn Eddy, and we're talking about her movement, So Worth Loving. It's not just movement now. It's also a book. You can go to her website, ErynEddy.com. That's ErynEddy.com. And it's funny you said Jeremiah 29:11, because I kind of say that frequently on the show. God knows the plans that he has for our life, plans to give us hope in the future. I like how you talk about the translation of, the thoughts. That's pretty interesting, because there's something I say on the show frequently. I've been saying it like since 2017. Every time I get a chance to say when it fits, I say, our life is a blank canvas. What we do is the action, it's the paint, and that's our mark on history. But the thing is that our paint has to come from somebody. So God gave us the paint. He allowed us to be on this earth, to walk this earth, so that we can develop our own story. That's why he gave us our own unique fingerprint. Because every time you do something, that's your signature. So
that is so good, and that is so true. Yeah, because that's the thing. Like are we going to be the painters, or are we going to allow? Like I remember, I was like, if I'm going to learn about how to love myself, not the arrogant, boastful, selfish kind of love, like the true love that Scripture talks about, with the patient, not easily angered, and grace giving. Like if I'm going to do that, I want to know who the source of love is. I want to know who he is. And it's like knowing the painter. Am I going to paint out of my own? Like I'm just, as prideful as I can be, I'm just not strong enough to be the painter, because I got stuff like childhood wounds and baggage and statements people said over me that I, may not want to believe or agree that I don't believe, but I do believe, and things that I wrestle with in life. And yeah, it's just, I love that. I love seeing God as the painter to the canvas, instead of me being the painter of the canvas, because I'll paint a funky picture. I will for sure paint a funky picture.
Going back to why we have you on the show today, we all know God is the source. And it's funny you say that. I always say God is the source, because it's like whenever something's the source, you never have to question it. It's authentic. It's nothing forced. It's nothing that is something that you manipulate with, or that you use as a way to get ahead. It's just natural. And if God's the source, that means there's no way we can manipulate anything to get artificial results, because we live in the artificial social media world. Everything's about likes and retweets and stats and numbers. But at the end of the day, like, what does it really matter? Like, what does it really mean? It's just temporary. But what's not temporary are our choices. Our choices are what we read in the history books. Our choices is what people remember us by. But the good thing about it is we can make the choice today to write a continued story in our book. And the way I set that up is to kind of tease what you have written for the readers of the audience today. What is it that you would like to tell the listening audience when it comes to how they can stay encouraged when they read this book? Because it's one thing to read it, but it's another thing to apply it to their life.
Yes. You know what I would say, anybody that's listening, I want to just encourage you. I want to go ahead and give you the, not that I have the power to do that, but I just want to go ahead and say, listen, you're not going to rise. Like, go ahead and give yourself that, like, take off that burden. Like, you are not going to perfect how to perform better, how to arrive to self-worth. It is a constant battle, but it is a beautiful fight that you can experience with God when God is doing it with you instead of you doing it and then telling God. Like, I had to recognize I was telling God what I was doing instead of letting God do it with me. And that can sound flowery, but if you truly do just ask God, like, God, I don't even know where to begin, but I believe, or I'm trying to believe, or someone told me that you are somebody that will do this with me. I want to encourage the person that's listening that you can do this with God. You can learn more about how to find your identity and a true, authentic relationship with Him that's not manufactured by whether it's upbringing or church or people, but a true relationship with him, learning the unforced rhythms of grace, like Matthew 11:28 says. God, show me how to take a real rest. Show me the unforced rhythms of grace. I want to watch how he does it. Like I know that scripture says, watch how I do it. When you just surrender, it's like surrendering your stubbornness. I mean, I got it. I got pride. I got stubborn. I got ego. And so recognizing that, giving it to him, and then asking him to do life with you. That's what I want to encourage the listener, is that you're not going to fully arrive. Ask God to do it with you. And then I want to encourage the listeners that it's going to be a battle and it's going to be a hard fight. But the thing is, choosing a negative thought, choosing a unhealthy lifestyle is actually really easy for us. It's choosing what is healthy and what we are worth and what our value is. That is hard. But anything that's worth fighting for is hard.
I got one more funny joke. I know it's serious, but I have to share it. Unhealthy lifestyle is literally like trying to dance off beat to your favorite song. It just doesn't look right. It really doesn't. So with that being said, all jokes aside, I want to thank Eryn Eddy for being on the show today, because when I read in your, long bio of achievements, I was like, wow, she's on the Oprah Magazine. I don't need to read nothing else. This is official. Just because of that, I know I made it. So, they say if you're attached to someone who's successful, you're the next one in line. So here I go. When you see the opportunities of 2021, before we let you go officially, what would you say to the young dreamers out there who are hungry to be the best that they possibly can be in their life? Because they have a lot of pressure. They have a lot of technology. They have a lot of influences. What would you say to our young people who are the next generation of dreamers and doers?
Yeah. I would say do not look sideways. Do not look side to side. Look forward. When you look forward, you know that you are looking towards a vision of what God has instilled in you and what you are purposed for. When you look side to side, you look at other people's vision and what they are purposed for, and you start to compare, and you start to get envious, and you start to manufacture something that's not true and authentic to how God has uniquely wired you. It's very hard to it's very hard to not look sideways, because social media is only looking side to side. So stay focused on looking forward, your vision, how you're uniquely wired. Don't compare. And then anytime you experience adversity, accept that this is going to sharpen your character and keep moving forward. Don't let adversity stop you from moving forward. Just know that you're going to grow through it.
This felt like a movie that the credits are about to start rolling, but it's like, wait, why? Is there going to be like a part 2? But I'm sorry, there's not going to be a part 2. Maybe in the future, but not right now. We had to wrap it up for our time. But once again, I want to thank Eryn Eddy for being on the show today. And how can people keep in touch with you on social media if they really want to connect with you?
Oh, this is so much fun. Let's just co-host together. Let's just do this often. You can find me at Eryn Eddy, ErynEddy on Instagram. At So Worth Loving is our movement and our brand. It's just So Worth Loving. And then you can also find me at soworthloving.com and ErynEddy.com. That's ErynEddy.
Once again, thank you for being on the show today. And if you heard this show and you want to hear it on demand, you can go to IamRefocusedRadio.com or any platform that has a podcast. Just go type I Am Refocused Radio on Google and bam, we will be everywhere. So once again, like we say on every single show, keep God first, stay focused, and peace.